My name is Alexandra Gale. I run a small but successful tech consulting firm in Manhattan, New York. I had spent my entire 20s working relentlessly, pouring everything into my career until I finally achieved the success I dreamed of. And in my personal life, I believed I had found true happiness. I was expecting my first child with my beloved husband, Jonathan. Jonathan is a freelance photographer. I was drawn to his dreamy, artistic side, even though his income was unstable. Fortunately, my business was thriving, and supporting him financially felt like both my joy and a testament to my love. My mother, Elizabeth, lost my father early and raised me on her own. She was my best friend, my mentor in life, and my greatest supporter. When I started my company, she was the first to cheer me on. When I decided to marry Jonathan, she embraced him as if he were her own son, saying, "I've gained the best son I could ask for." I will never forget her tearful smile when I told her I was pregnant. She was even more thrilled than I was, eagerly preparing for the arrival of her grandchild. She took the lead in planning my baby shower, booking a trendy restaurant, creating a guest list, and coming up with a beautiful decor theme. She looked so happy. We were a perfect family until that night, when my smartphone received a cold, mechanical notification from our home security system. It was the last night of a 3-day business trip to Los Angeles. I had just finished delivering a high-stakes pitch for a major investment deal and finally felt the tension lift from my shoulders. Alone in my hotel room, I sipped herbal tea from room service. Perhaps sensing my relief, the baby in my belly gave a gentle little kick. Smiling at the warmth of that movement, I reached for my phone. I was about to tell Jeff that my presentation had been a success when it happened. A single notification popped up on my screen. It was from our home security system. Unusual activity detected. 10:14 p.m. front door. I frowned. This was a state-of-the-art system I had personally chosen. It used AI to learn our household's routines and would only alert me, the primary administrator, if something out of the ordinary happened. At this hour? I murmured. Jonathan had never been particularly interested in technology. When I installed the system, he simply said, "That's amazing, Alexandra," without caring about the details or settings. So all important alerts were configured to come directly to me. I opened the Recordings tab, and when I saw the figure on the screen, I caught my breath. Mom? In the night vision footage, there was no mistaking her. Elizabeth was calmly entering the code on the keypad, unlocking the door, and walking inside as if she lived there. The timestamp read 10:14 p.m., a completely unreasonable hour for her to be there. A cold shiver crept up my spine. Because just that afternoon, I had spoken to her on the phone. "Sorry, Alexandra. I'm feeling a bit under the weather, so I've been in bed all day." Yes, she had said those exact words. Her voice had been faint, yet steady, carrying that familiar warmth of a mother trying to stay strong so as not to worry me. It was a lie. An alarm blared in my head. Why did she lie? Why was she in my house, acting as though it were her own? My fingers turned icy. I could feel my heart pounding with an awful, jarring rhythm. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. I searched through more recordings and found them. Every single night since I'd left for this trip, she had been coming to my house. My mind went blank. My mother? With Jonathan? No, impossible. The same mother who had always wished for my happiness? The same mother who had doted on my husband like her own son? Inside my head, the part of me desperate to deny what I'd seen was colliding violently with the part screaming that the alarm was real. But I didn't have enough proof yet. All I had was the fact that my mother had been visiting the house. Then, like a sudden revelation, a memory flashed in my mind. The baby monitor. My own voice came out hoarse, even to my own ears. 2 weeks earlier, I had bought a top-of-the-line baby monitor for my soon-to-be-born child. It had crystal-clear video and automatically recorded to the cloud. To test it, I'd placed it on top of a bookshelf in the living room angled so it could capture the entire space. I had left the continuous cloud recording setting turned on. With all the chaos of preparing for my trip, I had completely, utterly forgotten it was there. My heart was split between a desperate prayer and the bone-deep fear of knowing the truth. My fingers trembled as I searched my phone's apps for the baby monitor icon. They wouldn't move the way I wanted them to, fumbling over the screen until I finally managed to open the cloud storage. There it was, a long list of video files, neatly organized by date and time. I selected the one from the previous night, recorded just after my mother had entered the house. My finger felt like lead as I pressed play. The familiar living room appeared on screen. There was no audio, the microphone had been turned off during testing. But I didn't need sound. Soon, two figures emerged in the back of the frame. My husband Jonathan and my mother, Elizabeth. There were no words between them. The night vision footage told the truth far more cruelly than any words ever could. Elizabeth slipped her arms around Jonathan's neck. Jonathan's hands moved to her waist, pulling her close. Their faces leaned in and met. The rest of the footage was unbearable to watch. It was filled with the languid, practiced intimacy of two lovers who had spent a long time together. The sound vanished from my world. I couldn't hear the hum of the hotel's air conditioning or the traffic outside my window, only the deafening thud of my heart stopping once, then shattering into pieces inside my skull. The phone slipped from my hand, landing on the carpet. Somewhere beyond my awareness, it kept playing the record of their betrayal. I couldn't even cry. I just stared blankly at a spot on the wall. The smiles, the kind words, the tears, every bit of it had been a lie. My happy world had been nothing but a facade, a cheap set piece built on a massive soundstage. I had no idea how much time had passed. Then, suddenly, the small life inside me gave another gentle kick. In that instant, I drew in a sharp breath, and I picked my phone back up from the carpet slowly. This time, I didn't look away. I watched the vile recording all the way through. Anger, grief, despair, all of it surged through me like molten lava. But at the very center of that molten core, something cold and unyielding began to take shape. I will protect this child, no matter what. A single tear slid down my cheek, but it wasn't a tear of sorrow. It was the beginning of a quiet vow of revenge. The next afternoon, I returned home to New York. The moment I stepped through the door, Jonathan greeted me with an overly bright smile and a tight hug. "Welcome home, honey." In his arms, I held my breath for a second. I knew exactly who those arms had been around the night before. That warmth now made my skin crawl. "I heard your presentation went well." "That's my Alexandra." I plastered on the flawless smile I had practiced and kissed him back. "Of course. Thinking about you and this baby gave me all the strength I needed." A lie. All I could think about was my baby's future and my revenge against the two of them. That night, my mother came over to make dinner. Jonathan had invited her, saying, "You must be tired from your trip. Let Mom help." He wore the face of pure, unshakable goodwill. In the kitchen, Elizabeth looked every bit the gentle, caring mother I had always known. "Alexandra, you need to take it easy. Don't let yourself get cold while you're pregnant," she said, draping a cardigan over my shoulders. I fought to suppress the shiver that crawled across my skin at her touch. Over dinner, she spoke cheerfully about the baby shower plans. "The restaurant venue is just beautiful. Jonathan already paid the deposit. He's so reliable." "I'm so happy," she said warmly. I lifted a spoonful of soup to my lips, smiling sweetly. "That's wonderful." "Thank you, Jonathan." Of course, I knew full well that the deposit had been paid with the credit card I'd given Jonathan for household expenses. That was the night my double life began. By day, I was the blissfully ignorant, expectant wife and daughter. By night, once they were asleep, I became the cold, calculating observer. As a businesswoman, I'm used to analyzing data, assessing risk, and creating strategy. I never imagined I would apply those skills at home. I began with a complete audit of the money flow. My company was still growing steadily, providing us with a comfortable life. I had also been fully supporting my mother's lifestyle, her upscale Manhattan apartment, utilities, groceries, all automatically paid each month from my company account. Elizabeth had no idea where that money really came from. She knew I was somewhat successful, but had no real understanding of the scale of my business or my actual income. She seemed convinced her lavish life was funded by her beloved son-in-law, Jonathan, and his unstable photographer's earnings. Why had things turned out this way? The answer was simple: my absence. As my business expanded, I spent more and more time traveling, not just across the country, but for long stays in Europe and Asia. I was often away from home more than once or twice a month. While I was out in the world, working myself to exhaustion for our family's future, another family was quietly deepening its bond inside my own home. When I wasn't home, the house became the perfect rendezvous spot for the two of them. My absence was the ideal opportunity for their love to grow. The comfortable home, the generous lifestyle, the free time I had provided, it had all become fertile ground for their betrayal. In my study, I organized every piece of evidence: security camera footage, baby monitor recordings, credit card statements, wire transfers to my mother. One by one, the facts clicked into place like puzzle pieces. The picture that emerged was uglier than I had imagined. My mother had seduced Jonathan for money. My husband, lonely in my absence, had taken comfort in a woman who happened to look younger than her age, my mother. Together, they had built a partnership out of deceiving their shared sponsor, me. The last piece fell into place. In that moment, every trace of doubt vanished from my heart. On my desk sat the baby shower invitation Elizabeth had insisted on, a tasteful cream-colored card that read, "Let's celebrate Alexandra and Jonathan and the new life they're bringing into the world." I traced the letters with my fingertip. "Yes, let's celebrate, Mom," I murmured. A cold smile curled on my lips. That moment when your vanity and his betrayal are exposed, in the most brutal way, on the grandest stage possible, it will be the perfect party. I'll make sure of it. For the 2 weeks leading up to the shower, I spent my nights in the study writing the script for the climax and creating the key footage. The baby monitor's silent, damning recording wasn't enough on its own. That alone wasn't enough. I needed to present their crimes in a way so clear, so undeniable, that no one could refute it. First, I secretly obtained Elizabeth's bank statements. Of course, without her knowing. Then I turned to Jonathan. There was little to no documentation of his income. In Jonathan's freelance account, there were only sporadic, small deposits, amounts so meager that living in New York would have been impossible without my support. I began editing the data with precision. On the left side of the screen, my mother's credit card statements showing her extravagant spending. On the right, the transfers from my account that funded those expenses. Beneath captions explaining the flow of money, I inserted the baby monitor footage, the decisive moment slowed down for emphasis. Fueled by rage and hatred, I created a flawless, airtight exposé. I told the event coordinator at the restaurant that it was a surprise thank you video for my husband and my mother. She was moved. "What a wonderful idea. We'll have the best sound system and a large screen ready," she promised. Fool? She had no idea this wasn't gratitude, it was a countdown to ruin. Then, the day came. The baby shower was held at a trendy rooftop restaurant in Soho, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline. The venue, decorated in white roses and baby's breath, my mother's choice, radiated a gentle, almost sacred atmosphere. My business partners, longtime friends, relatives, more than 50 invited guests chatted over champagne. I sat at the place of honor, wearing the silk maternity dress I'd chosen for this moment. I smiled serenely, thanking guests for their warm wishes. Every so often, my baby kicked, as if sensing the energy in the room. "Don't worry, baby. Mama's going to end this for you." Beside me, Jonathan was in high spirits, greeting my business associates as though he were hosting the party, flaunting his wine knowledge. His foolishness almost made me pity him. And then there was Elizabeth, truly the star of this false stage. Dressed in a Chanel tweed suit and carrying the latest Hermes bag, she strutted like a peacock, surrounded by friends, boasting loudly. Without even straining to hear, her words reached me. Jonathan is such a wonderful man, so talented. And he completely supports Alexandra financially. He's even planning to sign a lease on a new studio for our grandchild's arrival. Lies. Every word of it. That studio lease, the guarantor, the funds, it was all me. Her friends gushed. Elizabeth, you're so lucky. And what a perfect son-in-law. She smiled, raised her glass, soaking in the praise. I simply watched the scene in silence. The flowers, the music, the champagne, the laughter, every detail now felt like the overture to an execution. When the party reached its peak, the MC took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. And now, please welcome our guest of honor, the beautiful mom-to-be, Alexandra, for a few words of thanks. Warm applause filled the room. Jonathan squeezed my hand and whispered, "You've got this." Elizabeth dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, smiling at me with pride. I rose slowly, resting one hand on my belly, and took the microphone. I looked around at the guests. Everyone was looking at me with warm, congratulatory eyes. Not one of them had the slightest idea that, in just a few minutes, this heaven would turn into hell. I took a deep breath, then brought the microphone to my lips, still wearing the flawless mask of a loving daughter and wife. The stage for my revenge was set. All that was left was to raise the curtain. Everyone, thank you so much for being here today. Each of your smiles and the gentle kicks from this baby are my greatest happiness right now. Warm applause rose from the crowd once again. I gently took Jonathan's hand. He smiled back at me, completely unaware. And today, there are two people I want to thank most of all. I turned to Jonathan first. Jonathan, thank you for always being by my side. I truly appreciate your great talent and your financial support for me and my mother. Jonathan looked a little surprised, but his expression quickly shifted into one of pleased pride as he pulled me closer by the shoulder. Next, I turned a warm gaze toward my mother, sitting in the front row with tears in her eyes. And to you, Mom, thank you for always being my greatest supporter. I know how much you trust Jonathan and how happy you are with his support, knowing that his financial strength allows you to live each day in comfort and joy. That's the greatest act of filial love I could ever give you. Elizabeth made no attempt to hide her tears now, nodding over and over. I could hear her friends whispering, "What a wonderful family." It was the perfect setup. I glanced toward the event coordinator in the corner, signaling with my eyes. Today, as a token of my gratitude to the two people I love and trust most in this world, I've prepared a little surprise video. Please direct your attention to the screen. The lights dimmed. Every guest's expectant gaze turned toward the large screen mounted on the wall. It began with a montage of happy memories. Photos from my wedding to Jonathan, snapshots from trips we'd taken together as a trio, and the video of us hugging in joy when we first learned I was pregnant. The emotional music filled the room, drawing sighs of warmth and contentment. Then, suddenly, the music cut out. The screen went black and reappeared with photos of my mother's glamorous lifestyle, fine dining, boutique shopping, a luxury trip to Miami. Next to them, projected in huge letters, was Jonathan's bank statement balance, $850. The room began to stir. Confused murmurs rippled through the guests. In the next moment, transaction records appeared, one after another, showing transfers from my account to Elizabeth's, streaming down the screen like a waterfall, accompanied by an unflinching caption. The real sponsor. Even from across the room, I could see my mother's face drained of color. Beside me, Jonathan stared up at the screen, not yet comprehending what was happening. And then, the final blow. The screen went black again. In the silence, a new caption slowly appeared. And while I was traveling the world for our family, The footage appeared, our living room, captured in night vision by the baby monitor. Two figures. No explanation was needed. Gasps broke out across the room, some shocked, some horrified. One woman covered her mouth. A man shot to his feet. Elizabeth's friends, their smiles gone, now stared at her with frozen expressions. The video stopped. Silence. The kind of silence so absolute you could hear a pin drop. I raised the microphone to my lips again. My voice was ice, clear and cutting. Mom. Elizabeth's shoulders jerked. The one funding that wonderful life of yours isn't him. I slowly pointed to my own chest. It's me. And while I was flying around the world, fighting for my child's future, the two of you were in my home, on furniture I paid for, building your little romance. Tell me, how did it feel? Jonathan opened his mouth to speak, but all that came out was a thin, broken sound. My mother sat frozen in her chair, her face ghostly pale, trembling uncontrollably. I turned to the guests and apologized deeply. Everyone, I am truly sorry you had to witness something so disgraceful tonight. Then I faced the two trembling traitors and delivered my final verdict. This farce ends here. And so does this pretend family, effective this very moment. I placed the microphone quietly on the table. Cradling my belly, I straightened my back and walked toward the exit alone. Behind me, the room erupted, shouts, sobs, angry voices, but I didn't look back. I have no idea what kind of hell broke loose in the venue after I left the restaurant. Later, a friend told me that Elizabeth couldn't endure the stares of contempt from her former friends and fled, covering her face. I heard later that Jonathan had been cornered by several guests, each hurling harsh, ugly words at him. That very same day, I cut off every form of financial support I had been sending my mother for years. Through a trusted attorney, I swiftly terminated the lease on her luxury Manhattan apartment and dissolved every remaining tie. At the same time, I immediately began divorce proceedings against Jonathan. The assets I had spent years building were protected by an ironclad prenuptial agreement drafted with expert legal counsel before our marriage. Jonathan had no legal claim to a single cent. He would never see even $1 of my money. I don't know the full details of what happened to them afterward. From what I've heard, my mother left her glamorous Manhattan life behind and now lives quietly in a modest apartment in the suburbs, surviving on a reduced income. The vanity and pretense she had clung to so fiercely, and her obsession with how others saw her, are gone. The pride she once believed she had built has crumbled to nothing. Worst of all, she has lost something that should have been hers by right: the chance to see her grandchild, who will soon be born. She threw that away by her own choice. As for Jonathan, he disappeared entirely from the small, insular industry where he once made his living. It's as if he never existed. The false mask of the talented artist he had worn for so long was ripped away, mercilessly and completely, by my own hand, under the full gaze of a packed audience that night. The shallow desires and my money, the very things that had bound them together, were gone. Without them, their relationship had no reason to exist. They had joined forces on the grandest of stages, and met their ruin in the most humiliating way possible. That day, I did lose a great deal. I lost my husband. I lost the only mother I had. I lost my faith in others, at least for a time. But what I truly lost was nothing more than a false love and a fabricated family. From the moment I thought everything had been destroyed, my real life began. In my arms now is a small, warm life. Within me is a strength that will not yield to any hardship. These are the things that no one can ever take from me. And it was only by losing everything else that I was finally able to find what truly matters.